Hi, this is James from Ludic Language Pedagogy, and this is part 3 of my introduction to what LLP is. Today we're going to talk about gamification. Before I start, I do have a fairly negative, realistic one might call it, view of gamification, and I think this is a good quote to start off with. In praise of pessimism, the need for negativity in educational technology. So we do have to be a little bit skeptical when it comes to ed tech. I think it's not the magic bullet that people think that it is, and I'm going to explain why. So first of all, what is reward-based gamification? This is also known as structural gamification in comparison to content gamification or meaningful gamification as termed by Nicholson, which we'll be looking at shortly. So structural gamification basically means adding game-like elements to traditional education, such as clickers, badges, leaderboards, points, etc. So it's a layering of a kind of game-like system, a point system, a reward system on top of normal education. Apparently, it promotes out-of-class learning based on tapping into extrinsic motivation. And it is a way to drive behavior in predetermined directions. For example, if you want a student to do something, you apply points to it, and the student is perhaps motivated to do that in order to get the points to pass the class. This is a quote from Todd, and it says, "Within my own context of teaching in higher education, this is a very appealing proposition. The ability to harness the power of games without the difficulty of trying to implement games within my own course." So I think that gamification is perhaps seen as a simpler or a straightforward way of making something like a game. Regarding the use of reward-based gamification, this is a book by Pink in 2011. I think it's called Drive. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's called Drive. And I think this quote really sums up my issues with gamification. So, if there is a situation where the subject, i.e. the students in our case, has no way of developing intrinsic motivation, that is, there's no way that they're going to enjoy this task for the sake of it. So if they have no way of developing intrinsic motivation to perform the task, then the reward-based gamification can be valuable in helping someone engage with the task. Engage with the task. So we can drive engagement in a task with a reward if there's no way of them actually developing intrinsic motivation in the task. This use of incentives to motivate someone to do something when they have no other reason to do so is a very common use of rewards and for tasks that do not require creative thinking. Okay, so if the task is boring, they have no motivation to do it, we can put a reward on and kind of force or promote behavior for them to do that task. There are many gamification tools. When you think about it, gamification is a technique that has been used by teachers for a long time. Gold stars, leaderboards, crosses for bad behavior, sent outside the classroom, told to go to the teacher's office, homework activities which are worth extra points. We have been gamifying our classes for a long time. There is a tool here called Class Dojo, which is basically surveillance of students shown onto the screen at all times. If a student does something bad, then they'll lose a point. If a student does something good, then they'll be given a point. So it's a completely kind of Big Brother-like system where students are watched and they're given points and based on their behavior. Regarding this Class Dojo piece of software, there was a quote in Singer 2014, and a student said, "I like Class Dojo because you get rewarded for your good behavior, like a dog does when it gets a treat." This is from a student, and it kind of sums up the behavioristic tone to what gamification is perhaps in its shallowest. In terms of gamification in language teaching or English language teaching as written here, there is a paper by Lombardi in 2015 called Fukudai Hero. And the goal of this paper or this study or the gamification implementation was to raise student motivation and engagement with class materials. Lombardi wrote that the following game elements were incorporated into his system. I'd like to focus on narrative and missions in particular. This is an example mission, which is mission number 7. The topic on the textbook being culture and music, the students were told to choose a music genre that you want to talk about, work with a partner. You and your partner will interview each other on the topic. Record yourselves. The mission is worth 50 points. Extra points if you actually sing while performing. So it was to record an interview between 2 students outside of class for 50 points. There is a clear connection to the textbook, which I think is a positive point here. But what did the students do with the recording? Is it handed in as proof of them actually doing the activity? Or is it used as the start of an extension activity? Does it lead into another mission? I.e., where is the narrative element here? How does this lead them towards what Lombardi was calling them becoming the Fukudai hero and winning the quest or whatever? I think there's a serious lack of narrative here. So in the paper, Lombardi mentions that Fukudai hero takes place in the fictitious kingdom of Fukudai, whose real life equivalent is the university campus. Students are trainee heroes. So this is the narrative element, but it doesn't really appear in the missions at all. And they have to prove their worth of becoming full Fukudai heroes. The official language of the kingdom is English. So I guess there's an idea here of the English language being the inefficient means, or I don't know. So the narrative is written here, but it doesn't appear in the missions or the quests, and I think that's one of the flaws of this particular gamified system. And there's no goal other than doing English tasks for a grade, really. Fukudai Hero is mission-based. Missions are tasks designed to get students to use spoken or written English in and outside of class. Their successful completion brings the wannabe heroes closer to their final goal, the final goal being to get an A. So my translation of this is that the intervention rewards students for undertaking disjointed random missions that are aligned with the textbook chapters in order to get a passing grade. This could be done without this fantasy layer thrown on top. The next piece of software we're going to look at is called Pocket Passport. I won't play this video because we might get a DMC takedown order. Some of the claims of Pocket Passport are that the assignments, classes, and tests or quizzes feel rewarding. It incentivizes students to learn and master the material. Regarding this mastery of material, extrinsic rewards are definitely not the way for a student to become mastery oriented. If we're thinking of the research by Dweck, the idea of performance or mastery orientation, it's been shown that a student will become interested in learning material based on intrinsic motivation, and that relates to being a mastery-oriented student rather than a performance-oriented student. So I find it difficult to understand that the extrinsic rewards of Pocket Passport or any other gamified tool actually promote a mastery orientation. Another claim here is that it encourages fun and healthy competition, boosts morale, and makes students excited about coming to class. Again, the idea of competition between students, it's only very good for, I'm not sure of a specific figure, but maybe 25% of a class, or at least those students that are naturally inclined to be excited or motivated by competition, they do well. Also, you'll find that high performers enjoy the competition. Medium or low performers, once they see their position in the table, they quickly become despondent and give up. So I would warn against including strict competition-like elements to a class. Gamifying homework encourages informal learning. Is this informal learning, or is it forced learning outside of class? Technology is here to stay. It's easy to implement, and it is proven to hold the attention of the digital native. So there's an issue here with digital nativism, where technology's primary effect is to amplify human forces. Where teachers don't know how to incorporate digital tools appropriately, there is little capacity for the technology to amplify. Again, this quote from Toyama is warning against the The idea that students are inherently interested in digital external tools for their learning. My recommendation for people interested in gamification is to read Alfie Kohn. This is Alfie Kohn on content. Has the child been given something to do worth learning? One has to think about this when assigning a task. So this is Alfie Kohn. If you ask me what to do about a kid being off task, one of our favorite buzzwords, my first response is to be, what's the task? If you're giving them garbage to do, yes, you may have to bribe them to do it. This reverts back to Pink. If the kids have to endlessly fill in the blanks on dittos, you're not going to get rid of rewards or threats anytime soon. So throw away the stick, throw away the carrot, bring the meaning. So my overarching critiques of gamification for language teaching or teaching in general is, isn't school already gamified? We require students to do things that they perhaps might not want to do. There are rules. There are means to getting the points which they get to pass the class, unless you're doing an ungraded class system. If there's grades, school is perhaps already gamified. And isn't gamification just behaviorism? Are we not just pushing students into particular behavior rather than getting them to be curious and interested in a particular topic? Again, from Pink, remove the reward and remove the behavior. As soon as the reward is stopped being given, the behavior stops as well. This is a quote from Seaborn and Fells. 80% of applied gamification research does not mention or address theoretical foundations. So why are they using gamification? Is it based on anything out there in the theory? Again, my advice would be to please read Cohn's Punished by Rewards book. He talks about 3 things that can help students become motivated towards a task. And that's the content of the task, the quality of the task. Collaboration, allowing learners to work with others, connect with peer groups. And choice, so choice of tasks to complete rather than a single task, possibly related to learners' individual interests. Okay, so what is meaningful gamification? This is from Nicholson, 2015. Nicholson came up with a recipe, which is reflection, exposition, choice, information, play, and engagement. So if you're interested in doing gamification in the classroom, I would love to see more people using Nicholson's framework rather than the shallow structural gamification of literally putting a layer on top of points and rewards. Nicholson talks about exposition, so creating stories for participants that are integrated with the real-world setting and allow them to create their own. So again, this relates to narrative. Is there a narrative that goes throughout the whole story? It's not just mission 3, interview somebody outside of class. How does that mission actually connect to a real story that goes from start to finish? Information, so using game design and game display concepts to allow participants to learn more about the real world context. Again, so nest learning about the real world as part of a game world setting. Finally, engagement is the last point here. Encouraging participants to discover and learn from others interested in the real world setting. So instead of promoting engagement by points, promote engagement by linking it back to the real world setting and allowing students to explore that setting. So in sum, gamification is not teaching with games. Gamification is not GBLL. Elements such as a problem to solve, competition, timing, and scoring can help to make an activity more game-like, but they are also elements of tests, so they do not by themselves lead to cooperative engagement in educational gaming. And this is from Hubbard, 1991, in Corneli, Thorne, and Desmet. That is all for this video on gamification. In the next video, I will be talking about the issues with GBLL and how LLP hopes to solve some of these issues for teachers in the classroom. Thanks.